and welcome to Season 3's premiere episode of Super Geeks. I'm George. Joining me today, who hasn't been here in a little while because of family and annoying things like that, is Shawn. How you doing, Shawn?
Doing well, my friend. How are you?
Doing pretty good. You sound a lot clearer than usual. You're not out in the bushes this time, I take it.
No, I'm indoors now.
Whose bushes was he hiding in?
My own.
He has special bushes, the bushes of love. If you've seen that,
he's done this broadcast while filling up his gas tank.
Yeah, and from Home Depot.
This is true. From Lowe's, Home Depot. I've done it on the road on US 95 to from Vegas to Phoenix. Yeah. I just make it
suspiciously the same route that hookers take.
Oh my!
All right. Well, moving on.
Ain't nothing suspicious about it, brother.
Also joining us today is Raul. How are you doing, Raul?
I'm doing fine.
Also known as Zeb Zeb, as far as what we see in TeamSpeak. That's cool. And Carlos Pedraza, how are you?
Great. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, it's I call it 2019. I call it 2019, and I'll tell you why. Something Dayton Ward posted made me laugh my butt off. Some people still say like 2000 whatever, and some people say 20 something. But Dayton posted this meme that was so funny, where someone's waiting for Barbara Walters to host the New Year's for next year, because then she could say, "This is Barbara Walters, and you're on 2020."
Right. Yeah, I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah, so it's 2000, because we didn't call it 1987 back in 1987. So I'm on the bandwagon where we say
this is only an issue, in the first part of any new century. So it will work itself out.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right.
Remember that people had trouble calling the first years the aughts. So there you go.
That's right. I still do.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. So we definitely need to talk about the Doctor Who New Year's episode, which was called Resolution. And because, have you seen that one, Shawn?
Hold on, I missed my button here. Yeah, I finished watching it tonight. I started watching it the other night with the kids.
Let's get your review on that first, since you haven't been here in a while.
Well, yeah, and it's the freshest to me. Honestly, I'm going to have to say that I think it was the best episode of the season.
I agree.
I totally agree with you.
It was so outstanding. You want to talk about cinematic? I mean, it was everything I love about a good action sci-fi Dalek episode that we've been used to over the past 11 years or so. But even better, it was just so much more grander. I was watching on my computer screen. I'm like, and I was angry because I'm like, why am I not watching this on the 65 inch? I should be watching this on the big screen right now. But I was busy, and I was like trying to cram everything in at once, but I had to get this watched tonight for you guys. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was outstanding, and it just was from beginning to end. And I loved how, and I thought it was going to annoy the piss out of me because of their relationship with I got the dad's name, Aaron. What's the son's name? Now that I'm
Ryan.
Okay. The problem with Aaron and Ryan, the whole thing was bugging me from the beginning. So I'm like, Ryan, come on, get over it. We got to get the plot moving along here. But it worked out so well, and it dovetailed so well at the end. And I hate when Doctor Who makes me cry. God damn it! Don't do it to me. And it does it a lot.
It does actually do that a lot to me too, but only after I've had a couple of beers.
Tear jerkers, and they did an excellent job. I loved it from the beginning, and it was great. And actually, I'll tell you what it did remind me. It did have a flare, especially in the middle there. It had a Torchwood flare to it, which I loved, and because it reminded me how
that whole unit part of it was fantastic.
Yep.
Well, speaking of your point about that, some people have complained that it's in some ways it's realistic and funny that unit in today's climate, especially with Brexit, that you could have a unit be chosen to be a defunded project that the government is trying to cut costs. But at the same time, they're like necessary, and the Doctor's like, what? And I can which military or which armed forces can I transfer you to? And I'm like, that was kind of funny, but
the bureaucracy aspect of it too. Yeah,
but let's talk about the cinematography of the. Well, actually, no, that's skipping ahead too much. I was going to say the combat scenes. Whoever directed it, I forget the guy's name. The person who directed this episode, the cinematography of the combat scenes, are something on a scale we've never seen for Dalek episodes, or any combat episodes of Doctor Who. The fight with the tank, for example, was Oh my God! Because the whole point, what I loved about that scene was it's a tank fighting a tank. It's because dogs have kind of, they've always been like tanks, and except for the creature inside. Well, so are our tanks. We're creatures inside of a metal machine. But when the tank fired on it and it did the,
So who's really the alien?
well, they did a great job of doing something new with the Daleks. In this case, this Dalek had been buried under the ground and they did this thematic thing at the beginning and the end, a narrative where back in the medieval days, people from all over the Norse, the Saxons and the Norse, or Saxons and the
basically everybody
got together. They somehow, I don't know how, but they somehow defeated this Dalek, broke him apart, spread out his parts across the world, and then it was dug up, and the archaeologists accidentally kind of unearthed this scout Dalek. This scout Dalek was different. He was able to hijack a person. I love that new angle, like where it was using a human until it could get it rebuild itself with Sheffield steel with this new Dalek. I love that theme with the.
I love the whole thing about Sheffield steel. For me, I think the part that was great about this, kind of dovetailing off what Shawn was saying, is that I think what made it great, in addition to the, some of the technical aspects that you're talking about, George, is the fact that it was one of the few episodes in this season that directly connected back to the, wider lore of the Doctor. And, I've sort of said this throughout the season that, these one-off episodes, they're so disconnected from everything else that it's just hard to get a real sense of forward motion in the story of these characters over the course of the season. And this last, the New Year's special and the last episode were the only ones that actually did that. And I think it was a good and effective way to round out the season.
Well, it's ironic that you said that, because what I was going to say was, in some ways, the true arc was within instead of without. It wasn't an arc that had to do with a villain. It was the arc of Ryan and Graham coming full circle and determining and grieving and coming full circle with accepting what happened to Grace.
I was just about to say this.
It was an internal arc rather than an external.
It bookended the premiere.
What I felt perfectly.
And I thought I really appreciate that. Well, at the same time, giving us this great Dalek adventure once again. And for the record, I just want to let you know, I was looking up. It's so much nicer than have to have it be inside when I have my laptop, is to try to do this on the phone and try to talk at the same time. But I looked up the director on this, and the guy's name is Wayne Yip. I don't know him, but I know his work. I'll tell you that much. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, Imposters, Class, Cloak and Dagger, Preacher, Doctor Who. He's got 3 episodes under his belt. Doctor Who. This guy knows how to direct science fiction and action, no question whatsoever. So yeah, we got
definitely a lot of those series that you pointed out are very well shot. Preacher, for example, I think is a very non-standard approach to some genre film work that really works, and I think you saw some of that in this episode too. That same kind of really fresh approach to and kind of gritty that you don't often see, certainly in Doctor Who.
And not only that,
I agree.
but this was obviously, I've been waiting for this because the Daleks, of course, are their role in the Time War affected all the previous Doctors on the New Who. But when Jodie comes along, I kept going, I want to see her face the Daleks, because she's always trying to be so confident, and she's a different Doctor not just because she's female, but maybe because for the better part, that's why. But her facing the Daleks, that scene where, for example, where she is fighting the Dalek for getting the one-up on using the GPS and trying to track it down, and Carlos got his wish. He got more of the TARDIS, baby, didn't you, Carlos?
Finally.
And when she made the hologram appear, look at my face, or like say it to my face when she did that part to the hologram so she could talk to the Dalek through that girl. That was awesome.
Did you notice the color coding on that? I
did. Every time the Dalek spoke, it was blue, and when she got her control back, it was more like kind of reddish.
Yeah.
That was great. And they really made the Daleks scary again. They found a way to do something. I didn't think it was possible to come up with an original new way to approach the Daleks. I thought it's all been done. It's like when you keep bringing back the Klingons, you keep bringing back the Borgs. How much more creative can you get with it? And they found a way.
I felt the same. I thought this notion They did it back in the I got those seasons, the Capaldi seasons. They just kind of Capaldi seasons. They just kind of blurred together for me. But they did it back, with Clara, and when they had this notion of this idea that the Daleks they get into like basically these skins of people, and the people think they really are people, but they're not. They're really Daleks underneath. That was kind of clever. But I kind of like this because it just seems scarier, because it's like, you're in the position of, you can't control what your body's doing. You have this thing that's telling you you're doing this. You have no way to stop me from doing this. And
oh my God, I can't believe you just brought that up.
Well, yeah, and that was pretty terrifying.
Well, remember when
Clara was unique?
But you just reminded me, because this was brought up online, but I did agree with it. They established something in the, I think it was The Magician's Apprentice, where Clara was inside that Dalek shell, and every time she said certain words, it translated to exterminate, and I didn't like that. It made it seem like, because they're like...
Do you know why I didn't like that?
But this Dalek...
The problem with that that was so...
He meant what he was saying. Like, he said exterminate even when he wasn't in the shell.
Oh yeah, exactly. But my point on that was, I think my biggest reason for why that didn't work, it's kind of like why on this Star Trek Discovery, why the whole Vok Ash thing didn't work for me, is because we saw it coming a mile away. And that's what happened in that episode, which is why that really didn't work for me. It's because, yeah, we get it. We know. We got it. Okay? She's the Dalek. We got it. That's kind of how...
I kind of wish they hadn't... My biggest complaint about the season has been that their trailers, their promo department, are horrible. It could explain a lot of the ratings dips, because in the past, they've always done a good job with promoting the next time episode, like even a teaser. But this season was horrible. They're giving you too little. It's not dramatic. You have no clue what's going to happen, and they think, oh, we're not giving too much away. But it's actually not even exciting you for that episode. Every single episode trailer or promo has made me go, I could have made a better next time promo that didn't give anything away but still excited people. I mean, it was horrible. And the same thing with the New Year's thing. And then the BBC decided a couple days before the episode aired to give away that it really was what everyone thought. It's a Dalek that she's talking about, one of the most dangerous creatures in the universe. And everybody heard rumors it was the Dalek, but they didn't. I kind of now wish, I usually don't mind spoilers, but I think it would have been much better if they had not revealed it in the final teaser before the episode aired, because the way that they redesigned that squid, it's called, and Raul will know what I'm talking about, old-time Doctor Who, the word Dalek is a reverse of the species called the Calids, Genesis of the Daleks with Tom Baker. Davros mutated the people, they were like Nazis of a different world, and he turned them into these little squids. It was a mutation that he purposely did, and they put them in the tanks. Well, the mutant itself, they redesigned it enough to where the way it was on the wall and the archaeologists found it, it was still ambiguous enough to where you didn't necessarily go, oh, that's a Dalek out of its shell. And if they hadn't revealed it in the teaser, up until the reveal where it said exterminate, you could have been like on the edge of your seat going, what is this thing? You know what I'm saying?
I
like
agree.
And that's actually how it turned out, because I purposefully did not watch the teaser.
Oh, all right. Well, then
so
you weren't 100% sure.
It was definitely not a huge surprise, but it was a surprise, and it worked. They kept it just ambiguous enough.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I haven't watched a teaser in like forever, because in the past few months for me have been so hectic. I've been time shifting everything I watch. So either I'm watching it on DVR, or I'm watching it on the internet just so I can pick it up and make sure I get it. But I didn't see a single teaser for this. I was going into it blind.
I'm gonna go ahead. No, go ahead, Shawn. What were you gonna say? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's it. Well, I'm good on that. I do want to bring up one more thing, and I just
Sure.
happen to be looking at IMDb here, I'm noticing here, especially for the past, and I can't make sense of this other than the fact that it's hater time on here. I'm seeing some on the IMDb ratings here. Those all the ratings you see on IMDb for episodes. Those are user ratings. I'm seeing some just crap ones from. They basically Yeah, since about the second, third episode, they had Rosa was 7.3, and but Twice Upon a Time was 8.1. And that wasn't even this. This not even this season. That's before. So don't even. So that's the Capaldi episode. The Woman Who Fell to only 7.2. Okay, so my point being here, I'm looking at all these. They're like 6.3, 5.4. There are. I have no question at all that there are haters just clogging up.
Oh yeah.
And I'll say that because look, as much of a cynic as I am, to call to give the Serenga Conundrum a 5.3. Are you kidding me? Kerblam 6.6. What?
Yeah, that was one of the strongest episodes of the season.
I totally agree. It was great. It was so contemporary and perfect. I loved it.
And the Rosa one, of course, is probably the strongest one.
I don't know, man. I'm still of the opinion that I thought they could have done a lot more with it, but I mean, I just felt that the season got progressively better as it went along.
I wouldn't say progressively better. Arachnids in the UK was a slight setback,
but that was like the third episode I'm talking about.
Right.
Let's talk about. Let's pretend Arachnids.
Well, the Witchfinders didn't make me go wee either, but Alan Cumming did make it nice.
No, I did. I thought I didn't. The Witchfinders didn't make me weird, but I thought it was a fun Doctor Who episode. It wasn't great, but it was.
It was forgettable, but except for Alan Cummings.
These were. I mean, these were all. I mean, this was a very, very solid season. It's the best season they've had in several years.
I don't agree with you on that. I do think Capaldi's final season, especially the Doctor Falls and the one before that the World Enough in Time, which used that. Carlos will know that. It wasn't Hidden Frontiers. Which one was it?
It was New Voyages.
New Voyages did because they brought back George Takei and they did that Shakespeare. I think it was Shakespeare. Was it a Shakespeare story?
Yes.
Okay.
The Tempest, basically.
Right. The title was the same as that, and it stuck out to me. But that two-parter was, to me, Capaldi ended on a high note, and then
I agree with that.
But
I think overall, just for me, I think. Capaldi's last season was his best season, no question at all. But I think overall for me, I think this first season for Jodie Whittaker, I think it's, in my opinion, it's a little bit better. And
it's just it's a totally different new production style.
And we've got, and I think it's a good harbinger of what's to come.
This is why it's going to be 2020 before it comes back, because people don't forget. They operate on a different level as far as how they get their money and they sometimes Stephen Moffat and we've talked about this before, but because Shawn, you're not always here, I'm going to just repeat it. Sometimes they have to take a break in order to get their money built up because of the high standards, the new bar that they set for this new. Because they got the guys that did Blade Runner 2049, whatever the movie was called. They got those guys to replace really? That's why the FX have been improved. They got those guys in.
That makes my heart go.
Everything the bar has been risen, but there's a price tag attached to that, and they have to be careful because they can't. Stephen Moffat wanted the Day of the Doctor to be awesome, and it was, but he had to take a break for a while and release one of the second half of Matt Smith's whatever season that was. He had to delay it because of that, so that they could build up the budget for that. Awesome, epic 50th anniversary special. Well, that's kind of what they're doing right now. They have a higher bar now, but they still are limited to merchandising, which worldwide they get quite a bit. And then they have their own. The BBC allots money based on, I guess, donations or things like that. They have a different system. It's not based on marketing. It's not based on sponsorship. It's not sponsor based.
It's based on tax. Yeah, a tax on television.
There's a specific television tax that you have to pay as a UK resident every.
What I'm trying to say is they have to strategize their ways that they're going
to. That is true, but there's also the reality that television production, like anything else, the costs increase every year, and especially for a recurring series. I mean, that's always been the case. I point out this because I was a huge 24 fan back in the day, and 24 is. And this is the problem that every kind of flashy high budget show has. Sitcoms don't have this much of a problem, but shows, big blockbuster shows like Doctor Who, like Star Trek, like 24, like what they have is that even just by the nature of the beast of television, you get past about season 5 or so, and ratings will begin to drop off, no matter what show. How
Especially when they have a highly anticipated season premiere with the new First Doctor. Carlos pointed this out. You can only go down from there because the hype made it so high.
Last week. That was my point. That was my point entirely. It's the
you ruined his point, George.
Well, no,
but I'm going to jump in and be a contrarian.
I made the point. I made that point to you a couple of weeks ago that the novelty is where you're going to get that big boost, and then it's going to fall off. But like, for example, though, you get to about season 5 or so. At least you're talking about your production costs continue to increase, yet in the U.S. viewership is going down. So that means the ratings are inevitably going down, which means the revenue is inevitably going down. You have to be able to. You've got to balance that in one way or another, whether it be through distribution, whether it be through merchandising, whatever the case. You have to be able to balance that. And
you know how they're balancing it? BBC is changing Doctor Who's format to a streaming service. Oh no, guys who hate Discovery and CBS All Access, it's coming.
Happen. I called this.
It's coming.
If
you want Doctor Who, this is where it's going. Everybody's going there.
BritBox, isn't it? It's going to BritBox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured it was. I figured.
They're going to license it out to Amazon and people like that. But yes, it is doing that.
When they got it, when they're.
I guarantee you, season 12 will be on BritBox.
Yeah, when their contract expired on Netflix, I said, and they didn't renew it. I said, I'm telling you right now, they're going to BritBox. I'm telling you, because all the classic Doctor Who is already there. They're going to move it right to BritBox.
They've talked about this a year ago. It's like just that they're doing it slowly. And that's probably part of the reason why, now that I said that, that's probably another reason why there's this gap as they transit and figure out their deals, their license deals, all that stuff.
And guess who's a subscriber to BritBox already?
I don't have it, but I can do it. I know I can watch it on Amazon, so that's one option.
BritBox. My subscription for BritBox is through Amazon. It's $6.
See, everybody bitching about these subscription services, forget. As time moves on, they're not just going to go, you have to pay for all these. It's eventually going to come to a point where there's license deals, there's people that merge. Well, if you get this service, you also get this. I personally now have YouTube TV, but that includes so much more, and I'm happy with it. And I was watching Orville through that service. There's always going to be these merging of licensed groups that are going to move around. So,
you're never going to see bundling like you saw with cables. That era is falling off.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because people don't want bundling. People want what they want.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that the business model you end up with when that happens, people don't understand that it works because everyone is bundled, and that means that
that's right.
That means that all of these smaller cable networks are all getting a certain guaranteed amount, no matter what, and so it makes them less depending on the vicissitudes of ratings and advertisers, and that allows them to build audiences, to invest in shows, etc. USA Network is a classic example of this, but it depends on bundling. Once it's unbundled, it's basically becomes a set of a la carte services, and each one has to basically build up on its own, and you're going to see a real contraction in the number of those networks out there, and some of them will successfully migrate to streaming, many won't, and if you want to get a lot of them, you'll end up paying close to what you're paying now for cable anyway, with a lot fewer.
But you'll have more of what you want, Carlos. That's my argument. Is that you'll have more of what you want out of the things you want instead of.
But you're going to have less overall.
You are going to have less overall, but you can only have one set of eyes. You only have one set of eyes. That's my argument constantly. Whether given the choice between specific choices and a broad generalization, you do lose something because you'll never discover new things.
Yeah, but what you're forgetting is that this system has supported the kind of film and television development that is very hard to do under this coming a la carte system. It's just. Yeah. And so it just makes it a lot more expensive to create content than it did before, and it makes it a lot more high stakes. And I don't think that helps creativity.
I don't know, Carlos. I don't agree, because honestly, sci-fi has never benefited more than it has in this modern era, and because of streaming services like Netflix. Sci-fi is Netflix's biggest genre.
Because of look at Star Wars. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Raul. The only reason I want to jump on this while I have it in my head is you're right. The reason why I'm going to say this, and we talked about this before, Carlos, you even brought this up.
Yes, go ahead.
Star Trek never benefited well on networks, but it benefited well with syndication. And people can argue all they want about CBS All Access, but to Raul's point, sci-fi in general, shows that usually might have some amazing ideas, like such as Travelers. Travelers would not have continued if it wasn't for Netflix. They saw something, and they were also partners with that. What was it? Canada. What was it called? Canada. You told me last episode. Whatever group.
I think it was Space TV. Whatever. It's a Canadian network.
But the point is, But my point is that if it was just left to them, it would have got because they couldn't have handled the continuous budget of Travelers, or been able to justify it to their producers or their sponsors, or however they handled that. But because Netflix was part of that, Netflix saw the numbers of people that were coming in, and from what I read, Travelers was one of those shows that once it hit Netflix, they were actually unexpectedly hit with amazing numbers, and Netflix said, you know what? No, we'll foot the bill this time for the season 3. It's worth it. We're seeing numbers that you guys aren't. So we'll take it. We'll take it from here. And so to Raul's point, sci-fi shows that, like for example, Serenity, may survive now if they're partnered with someone that has the ability to
you mean
Firefly? look at it from not just the ratings, but from
He means Firefly.
So I'm sorry, you're right, Firefly. I'm thinking of the movie Serenity. I get it mixed up. But the idea is that it could have survived if it had been now that it happened. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't have got prematurely cut off.
To be fair, the Firefly saga is a long and is a very bizarre and twisted saga.
But the point is the numbers. The fans,
there is, but to Carlos's point, here's something that because I've explained before back in the day. This was my biggest hobby, was studying television trends and ratings and how the industry works. And with cable satellite subscription services, Carlos's point is absolutely correct about the bundling. Because, for example, are you a big fan of the Home and Garden channel or the Lifetime channel?
I have watched it sometimes, but no, not in general.
No,
I wouldn't go. Right. Let's make that part of my package deal.
But that's the thing. Here's the thing: the people that do watch those shows, okay, that are watching those, they're bundled in with your Sci-Fi channel, with your USA, with your TNT. They're not watching those, but they're watching those shows. And on the other, and vice versa, you're watching your TNT, your Sci-Fi, your USA, and basically what you're all doing is subsidizing each other in those bundles.
Exactly.
That's how it works.
But you don't have to subsidize yourselves.
But look at this situation, Raul, and this is a perfect example. Bringing up Lifetime, is I don't watch Lifetime. Years ago, 20 years ago, I watched it a lot more. But these days, I'm not a typical Lifetime user. Watcher, but once every year or two, they will have a really innovative series that gets a lot of write-ups. It's really interesting, and I check it out, and I will watch that entire series all the way. You is one. There was one with I don't remember the name of it. But yeah, so every couple of years they have a really great series like that. Well, because I have a cable subscription, I can tune into Lifetime even as a streaming service whenever I want. But, the scenario you're talking about and that we're moving to is, would require me to have to subscribe to Lifetime on top of all the other stuff I'm subscribing to, and, for one show.
Wait. Back up, Carlos. We were just talking about how Star Trek is driving numbers to a particular streaming service, and not only that, how we talked about Travelers driving Netflix subscription rates, and that was bundling underneath it other shows that are less popular. It's the same. It's the same. Wait. Hold 1 second, George.
Go ahead.
It's the same issue, but reversed.
I'm not sure about that. First of all, Star Trek is an exception, not a rule. It's a 50-year-old franchise.
Correct.
You can't compare it to something like You on Lifetime. They're apples and oranges. Secondly, I mean, I think yes, it is.
We have
it's a franchise that's literally
we
a
have
part
Star
of
Wars
culture.
coming out with that's driving its own streaming service. We have Game of Thrones, which is driving its own streaming service.
No, it's not.
The
it's part of the bigger
Game of
streaming
Thrones is
service.
not. It's part of HBO. That's different.
Listen to me. It is the reason HBO got the streaming service going. That is what my point.
Why would they do that when the show's about to? Oh, they're doing a spinoff, so you have a point there.
No, he's talking about them going to HBO Go and HBO now.
Let's talk about this. So if we're talking about HBO now, okay, here's the difference between having HBO in a cable or satellite package and having HBO now. Okay, if you've got HBO in your satellite package, you get 10 channels of HBO plus, the standard HBO, plus the ability to watch it on demand. And that costs you $10 a month. With HBO Now, you get HBO Now for $15 a month, and that's it. So there there is something to be said for having it in a subscription service like cable or satellite, as opposed to a standalone product. You're paying 50% more for the privilege of getting one tiny little service out of the entire HBO
which you can only watch
services.
one tiny little thing at a time, Stu. That's
All right,
what
hold
I
on,
don't
guys.
get.
Let's move on to a different subject because we're kind of pushing this one way longer than I think. We want to try to condense. This one's we've talked about this many times on this show. The subscription service is evolving. It's not perfect, but there's so many other subjects that we want to talk about if you guys don't mind. Is that cool, everybody?
No, I think it's definitely time to move on from this. We'll be talking about this.
Yeah, because everybody has a good point. Everybody has a good point, but
here's the thing. I agree with Raul too, and I agree with Carlos. That's the thing. So we could. It's a lot to digest. We are, like we said before, we are in the golden age of
we're overprivileged.
Television.
We're actually spoiled. We're spoiled in some ways.
It is very, very much so. I agree. So yeah, let's move on, brother. Let's do it.
Let's talk about Star Trek's newest and last short trek, which is called The Escape Artist. It's the Harry Mudd episode. I know that you guys both, again, Raul, we will eventually get to a subject you've seen. I'm sorry. But
I haven't seen it yet.
I'll go back to hibernation. No worries.
You don't have to hibernate because you might have something to say when you hear what we're talking about. Shawn, you haven't seen it? All right. Well, do you mind spoilers?
Not at all. Because
all right, good. Because there is going to be spoilers.
That's not a problem. But you got to understand something. The thing about it with me is that I love the portrayal of Harry Mudd in the Sky.
Good. Then you should watch.
So I'm really looking forward to this conversation there.
Oh yeah.
And I'll just chime in, when I feel necessary. Thanks.
It's called The Escape Artist. Harry Mudd, played by Rainn Wilson, is back. He's been captured by a Tellarite, which is the best Tellarite makeup, Carlos. I don't know if you agree with me, but that is the greatest Tellarite I've ever seen in any portrayal of Star Trek. What do you think of that part before I keep going?
Well, sure. We saw the same makeup.
No, but this guy was he's better.
No, that's about the actor, not the makeup. The
makeup.
Exact same. It's the exact same makeup as we saw earlier in the first season.
Yeah,
so
I suppose that's true.
It's more about the writing and the acting, but which is not to minimize how great the makeup was. It was great. You totally believed
he was
the way he looked, but it's not a new thing they came up with for this short track.
I suppose that's true. They just didn't. It was in the Mirror episode, right, when they went to the planet there.
Yes.
Yeah,
so they were
correct.
They were basically just walk-ons there, with a couple of lines. But in this one we actually get to see real character interaction, and that was great. So it definitely stands out on that note.
They did a great job of portraying Mudd, consistent with where we left off, not only in Discovery, but where he's headed in the future with the episode Mudd's Women. That's sort of, for anyone listening to this, by the time we get to this, hopefully you've watched the episode. There's a little bit of spoiler territory going on. The episode was clever. This is how you do a mini episode. Pay attention, Axonar. Or anybody that does a fan thing. Because I talked about this with Dayton that night, that day that we had him on here, where they're going to do mini episodes, or you call them like webisodes, or in this case they call them short treks. But the point is, you can do a great story in a short period of time. And they took Harry Mudd. He was like the ultimate example of Harry Mudd. He was captured by this Tellarite because he slept with the Tellarite sister. Wow, that was interesting. apparently he sold the cudgel, the honorary cudgel of the family that was passed down, and he was trying to get out of it. And they kept having flashbacks to all the other times he was captured and put in the same situation.
And the thing actually that made that effective was that they were flashbacks in a sense, but they were edited in a way that made them, kind of cut back and forth from one another.
Exactly.
And of course, part of what they're trying to show is that he used the same spiel on everybody. And of course, you think, well, of course, it's Harry Mudd. But then when you find out what the ending is, it makes even more sense on top of that. So that's what I thought made this one so clever and so effective, was that it was working on a lot of different levels. And when you see the ending, it doesn't only make sense, it makes more sense about sense.
My only complaint, there are two nitpicks that Dayton and I have talked about this in private messages. There's one of the nitpicks I'll talk about in a second, but okay. He goes on a Federation ship, and they've been through this before. That was the big reveal at the end, that there's multiple, it's all androids, and it was staged by Harry Mudd to collect his own bounty, which is brilliant. I want to pound my desk that my laptop's on right now. I'm afraid I'm going to disrupt myself. So I came close, but it was brilliant. But the problem with this is when the Tellarite went with him on the Federation ship, he pulled out and was able to use his weapon. They would have disabled it. It wasn't realistic. So they just let him casually come on board to hand in this Harry Mudd, and his weapon's still active. That with no security, it kind of was really weak on that part. But I'll give it a pass because the rest of it was brilliant.
Did it actually fire?
Yeah, he made his arm come off. He cut it off with his weapon to show he was an android.
Oh, I thought he just pulled it off.
No, I watched it 3 or 4 times. You know me. He actually.
Okay, I missed that.
Yeah, he did. He actually, because I said, is his weapon active? And then he shot the arm off. Nobody checked his weapon. They didn't know who this guy was. Can I approach your ship? Sure. Can I beam aboard? Sure. And he's got his gun, and it works.
Okay, no, fair enough, but. Yeah, that's a minor.
It's minor. I agree. I'll let that one pass. But it paid off.
I can retcon that to make in my head to make it make sense.
Okay, the other complaint
on that.
And Shawn, you might have seen the other complaint in our team speak. The other one was the use of gold. Now, this is not really a nitpick. It's more I can explain it myself. I think I can explain it in my head. But the problem is I wouldn't even call it a problem. I can see room for the haters to use this. They emphasize that because Harry keeps offering this Tellarite gold pressed latinum as his way of getting out, or in the flashbacks too. He has gold pressed latinum over and over. We never heard that as a monetary system until the Ferengi came along, which technically should have been known, at least to the Federation. But it's hard to really kind of differentiate that from when they actually met other races in the Star Trek universe. I know, but
that is such a dumb nitpick.
Yeah, look, it's not really a nitpick.
They never really talked about. I don't recall between Gold Press Latinum shows up in Deep Space Nine. That's the first time I'm aware it's ever.
But the Ferengi seemed to originate, but then
that's never established.
I agree. That's where you have wiggle room. I agree.
It's not established at all. In fact,
they might have adopted it. That's why I agree with you.
Well, it's established in Deep Space Nine that a lot of differences cultures use gold pressed latinum as a universal currency. But the thing about it is, in TOS and TNG, they hardly ever even discussed any kind of currency. Credits. That's all you ever hear about is credits. If you ever hear about it at all.
You heard about it in
and P.S. You heard both credits and latinum in this.
Yes.
In this
I actually argued this. Go. I'll give you a quick. I'm not going to make this long. I believe because Harry Kim. And not Tom Paris. Harry Kim was on Deep Space Nine.
Are we really going to go to Voyager on this? We really?
Well, because they were on Deep Space Nine.
I'm talking
about I'm talking about the pilot. They were talking about spending their credits. So that tells me they've always talked about money a little bit. The Federation people obviously have some kind of a merit system. It's a socialist type system, and so they get merit points, which they call credits, and it based
we don't know any.
We don't know that for sure. I agree.
We're just we're
speculating. I know.
And it's just it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
There's
a reason why they don't go into details about this, because
they know everybody.
You end up in all of the same kind of roundabout arguments that were.
When I went back to college in 2010, it actually was a subject in my college. That was a thing to, and I
sure, you'd expect that kind of academic.
Yeah, because they compared the Star Trek socialist ideal to whether it's applicable.
Well, and what you're seeing is, the application of by that point, ancient political structures onto something in the future, which we have no concept of how that works.
Yeah. Starship Troopers is another example of how you can do that. But yeah,
look at here's the thing: you want to get an idea of, and I found this to be at least the most reasonable explanation of the Federation economy. Just look up Star Trek and post scarcity. And that will give you it's a very long, complicated subject. But basically, it comes down to this. When you live in a society that doesn't have any limits whatsoever on any natural resources, and then the concepts of our political systems today and our economic system, they don't apply, is what it comes down to.
I agree with you. But there are two examples that stick out in my mind. One of them is when Scotty said, in Generations, I just bought a boat. And then the other one is when Ben Sisko, which is Sisko's father, owns a restaurant. Why does he get to own a restaurant in a money-free system when nobody else,
Well, but there seems
has to be a merit system. Something.
Well, it comes down to
this. It doesn't matter.
Well, it actually doesn't have to be. It could be that he is allowed to have one by the society at large, and he just calls it ownership because he's the one that tends it.
Okay, either way, there has to be a way that they figure out who gets what. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but here's the thing. As far as Gold Press Platinum in this episode, I can see that without having even said it. Here's what it comes down to. It comes back to the age-old argument in Star Trek. Just because we haven't seen it before doesn't mean it didn't exist.
I agree with you. That's why we had Uhura mention, let me have a Cardassian sunset although that's the alternative universe. But still, that was in the TOS era, so they may have known who the Cardassians were. And then Picard talks about how the Stargazer first encounter with this. You know what I mean? Like that's where, and again, it's an alternate universe, so they can get away with that. So,
well, the other thing you have to bear in mind is that seeing this 100 years before what you're referring to, like literally 100 years.
That is true.
And the Federation was smaller. They were interacting with other races that weren't part of the Federation that still used currency, and so you needed to have some kind of currency that could be used with them. So it all makes sense if you don't worry about it too much and try to because what you end up doing is imposing stuff that from the past that doesn't apply to the future, and you'll just end up chasing your own tail.
No, you're right. Like I said, I'm pretty creative. I think I can retcon it easily a few different ways, but I'm not going to take up the show talking about that. But I just found it interesting that it's like I said, a minor nitpick, but the way they ended it with Harry using the androids. Anybody that says they didn't have androids that advanced back then, look at Data was supposed to be like this new. No, these are not self-thinking and Harry Mudd's women. That's all you need to know. This is like a prelude to his having access to that stuff from Mudd's women. It makes total sense. He had found a planet or something that he could create the androids.
He did that. He did that in the second episode in TOS too. But you also have the first season of What Are Little Girls Made Of, where you have perfect replicas of human beings as androids that Kirk can't tell who's who.
So what he did, Shawn, is it was brilliant actually. He actually there's a huge bounty on
You actually already explained that, George.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry.
So here's the thing though, which I think is brilliant, because we're not talking like Data level androids here. What we're talking about,
not positronic individuals.
And in fact, what they were showing by doing all of those, cuts between the different scenarios in which he was dealing with bounty hunters, and he was using all the same lines. He was using all the same approach. These are just sophisticated tape recorders that are playing back, what they've been programmed to play, because all of these bounty hunters are going to say generally the same kinds of stuff. And so if you pre-program the responses, they can be tailored even with simple AI we have today to give a tailored response.
That's true. That's a very good point.
They're chatbots, is what they are.
No,
yeah, that's basically what they are.
Carlos, yeah, and it's funny because when the Federation officer opens that door and says we've had a ton of them, they're all repeating back the lines he's been saying throughout the whole episode, back in flashbacks and present. So you're right, Carlos. It totally works. So and it does sort of align with what we know he's able to do with Mudd's women.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just glad. Like I said, without having seen this, I know I'm going to love it anyway. But because I love the portrayal of Harry Mudd, though, because I've always said that. Look, for people who have a problem with the way Harry Mudd's portrayed, I caution them, and I say, on the original series, this is what we know about Harry Mudd. Harry Mudd is a thief. Harry Mudd is a pimp. And Harry Mudd is a drug trafficker.
Con man.
I'll be honest with you guys.
And a con man, yes.
I'll be honest with you. So, I don't like Rainn Wilson as Mudd, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, I love him.
No, I'll tell you why.
I think he's great.
The episode where he, like, the time loop, Harry Mudd was always portrayed sort of like as the thief with a heart of gold, but in the episodes of Discovery, they made him...
he wasn't.
Well, he...
No, he wasn't.
In one of the timeline sequences of the time loop, he, like... kept killing Lorca and people like
but he was never portrayed as having a heart of gold. What he was portrayed as in the original series was just very campy, which was funny.
He
was still quite diabolical.
He was ready to let the Enterprise just run out of fuel. He didn't care as long as it was served his interest.
Wait, was that an animated episode or
no? We're talking about his 2 appearances in the original series.
Oh, right. Okay. Because he was also in the animated series.
That's true. That was even more flamboyant.
I think what happens. I think this is what when I point out about this. It's what Carlos says about the campiness. People focus far too much on the campiness than what he actually did. His behavior was he's pretty vile. I mean, just pretty horrible stuff. So
knowing what we know about Lorca now, I mean, him vaporizing him in one sequence. You can look back and say, but to me, it kind of made him like, he was fine as a rogue until he got murderous. To me, it just felt a little, I don't know, in those episodes. Minor thing,
I think if you were looking for, Roger Carmel's portrayal, you're not going to see that in something in the 21st century.
Right, exactly.
People would not have accepted that kind of character.
Maybe if they give him the hat,
modern times.
The hat,
that would have been the worst thing they could have done.
I love the hat.
But I will say this. Here's the thing about this: is that I've been very critical of Star Trek Discovery Season 1. I thought I'm critical of the storytelling of it, and I thought they could have done a lot more. But Harry Mudd to me was a standout. I loved him so much. I love Rainn Wilson.
He was good.
In general, that's one of the best reviewed episodes of the season, frankly.
Which one? The time loop
one?
The time loop
Star Trek historically.
And Star Trek is standalone too.
Star Trek historically has very bad first season. Not a new.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Without question.
They got to find their feet, like with any show.
Actually, except for the original series, it had a very strong opening season.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
It's the third one that was probably the most.
And I think as opening seasons go,
in the first season of the originals, they had people like Heinlein writing. The episodes. There wasn't
exactly.
He didn't go to the small people. He went to the biggest sci-fi names he could, and basically taught them the format of screenwriting. And they wrote this. The reason it stands out so heavily.
That's not exactly what happened. I mean, he did go to these people, and they did write stuff, but he ended up heavily rewriting all of their stuff.
Of course.
And then to the degree that they decided in the second and third season that they weren't going to do that anymore.
He was a TV man, though, Carlos. They were not, and they did not know the
I'm not saying anything against them. I'm just saying that he is very well known for doing heavy rewrites, and there's some of the notes that he gave to who was it, Theodore Sturgeon?
Yeah.
Were
oh my God.
They were very kind of elementary TV writing things that Theodore Sturgeon just didn't get.
Gene was a little stubborn. Like, for example, when they pitched TNG, and they wanted to cast Patrick Stewart, he didn't like the idea that there's baldness. So he was letting that override the quality that they could get. And he was overwritten, thank God. And he did end up redacting that and saying, okay, I stand corrected. But at the time, it was like, he was like letting that little detail like mess up,
Here's what I'm going to say about that. With Gene Roddenberry, this is the big problem with the veneration that the fans have given him over the decades. They've created a bigger mythology about the man than really is necessary. The fact of the matter is, it's like Carlos said, and Raul just said, Roddenberry was a TV guy first. If you look at some of these notes and these memos, a lot of the subjects come down to great. Now, can we make it exciting? But really is really what it comes down to, because to that level, he understood that as great as these cerebral cerebral science fiction stories are, you have to be able to appeal to your primetime audience on television, for 10 minutes at a time, and then there's a commercial.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, and you know what, Shawn? To your point, I was talking about. I don't remember if you were in the chat before the show started when I said this. The show Andromeda with Kevin Sorbo was based off of a Gene Roddenberry unused pilot pitch,
right? Yep.
For a spinoff where the Federation was destroyed, and then this one ship somehow survived, and they're like went into suspended animation or a time loop, and then they come, and then their job.
Are we really going to spend time talking about?
No, we're not.
Right.
No, please don't. Kevin Sorbo.
No. I was just saying that, like,
so one thing I can't tolerate.
With the show, my friend.
All right, let's move on a little bit to the Orville. I mean, we have to talk about it because, I apologize, Raul, because the Orville is back. It's got a 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, 94% from the audience reaction right now.
Are they drunk?
No, dude. It is amazing. I mean, okay, I'll debate this with you.
One at a time, girls. One at a time.
Let Shawn talk.
Go ahead, Shawn.
Okay. I just finished watching these two. I had to fast forward through most of the crap because it was just such junk. The first episode was horrible all the way around. It's like there were 72 plots going on at once, and I didn't care about a damn one of them, and it had nothing to do with any kind of sci-fi whatsoever. It was all basically drama and soap opera. And here's the thing: I was curious about the acting too here, because I remember that episode with the doctor and her kids, and they were on the planet, and there was all sorts of crisis going on, whatever that. And the kids did a really good job of acting. I think we discussed this. They were terrible in this episode. I don't know what happened in the second episode. We had an A/B story. We had the porn addiction story of Bortas. And by the way, I'm getting sick of Bortas's weird little things coming up all the time. They got to move on to somebody else with weird little things going on. But
not to cut you off.
I totally agree. I think they've just turned him into like this stock character that.
Keep going.
Yeah, they just odd, because of who he is. But they had that be the A story, and the B story be the pen pal story from season 1 of Next Generation. Okay.
Man.
Both episodes are just completely ripped off TNG. You saw the video I sent you. I did not prompt my kid to say that. He said it to me. I said, "Let me record this." Okay, my 8-year-old said, "Why does this show seem like a bad ripoff of Star Trek?" Is exactly what my 8-year-old said when he was watching that tonight. And it's because it's what it's become. And mind you, I liked the Orville. I liked it last year, but it's like they're just going to the wall.
Oh my God.
For nothing but for all these, and I should point this out too. Am I the only one that caught the point that the second season, first episode of this season was basically their Spock, almost Spock type alien character?
It was meant to be. You don't. No, keep going. I'll wait.
Let me.
It's hard, but I'll wait.
Okay, then duct tape. Okay, then it was their Spock type character who had to return to his planet in the second season, first episode. Gee, I wonder what that's like. Almost like a mock time. I mean, come on.
That was done on purpose. Do you not understand that? Because all right, you keep going.
Right. The problem is it wasn't done well. It was obvious. It didn't create any new insight on an old thing. That's the problem.
They established in season 1, episode 1, that he had to wait a year to pee. They followed up on it and they used it as a funny way. That was the funny way that it was character. They could have started off with flashy FX, a big crisis, and kind of a crisis was there. But hold on. I had to burp it. I didn't want to catch it on the camera. I mean, the recording. And they did that. Yes, Shawn, you're right. I get it. But what the character, it was they branched off the character development that they made from the first season, and they said, you know what, we could do a lot of things with the season premiere. By the way, the Bortus episode, not the Bortus one, both of them were Bortus episodes, but the Primal Urges episode was actually filmed as the season finale for season 1. That was the one they pulled. And they chose to plop it in. That's why you didn't see that new stellar cartographer, dark matter cartographer.
It sounds to me like the episode should have been called Encounter at Lowpoint.
Damn! That was good. But
hey, George, guess what? That's the title of this episode, just to let you know.
I might have to agree with that one. But listen, I'm sorry I disagree with you, but I'm not sorry. Sorry, but not sorry. I sound passive aggressive. But hey, you know what?
Stop doing your microaggressions at me, George.
I mean, all right. I just cracked my knuckles. All right, I just
Carlos, what do you think?
Wait, I have to vent before Carlos interrupts me because Carlos needs to be the one that counters my rage. Okay. So I got to get this spiel out because once I'm done,
okay, get it out.
Carlos will be the voice of reason, probably. Here's my thing. What they did with the season premiere, first of all, is they continued the character progression. Ed is still in love with his wife. She brings up some good points, but I made a note, that some of her points, although they made sense, they didn't make sense. For example, hold on, look at my nose. She says, what will happen if a first officer and her captain shouldn't be in a relationship? Because, for example, if you're going to send a team down on a dangerous mission, who are the first 2 people you're going to pick? You know what I mean? And like she's bringing all these points up, and at
the
first
Hispanic Klingon who kidnapped your ship. I mean,
but here's
that would be my. Okay. Wait. Let me finish. But then I thought about that.
Sorry.
And she said, and it's too late. Even if they're not a couple, he is his ex-wife. He loves her. He admitted he still loves her because they almost got back together last season in the season finale, and then they decided to reel it back. So all her points she made are non-applicable. It's kind of too late. If it was Star Trek, she should already be requesting a transfer because no matter what happens, you can't just go, well, we're not dating anymore, so you have no more feelings for me. Everything she pointed out is still going to happen. He's still going to consider his feelings for her above other people, even if they're not a couple. You can't just magically turn that switch off. So everything.
I agree with you.
All right, go ahead.
But that's why the rating is so poor, because you just hit the nail on the head.
But that was interesting, though. I mean, that was actually interesting.
Right, but they never even touched that.
It's not that interesting.
I think
what Mercer should have said. Wait a minute, you know what? I can't have you on any away missions, period.
By the way, do you guys know?
Transfer.
Do you guys know who the bartender was at the end? That was Jason Alexander from Seinfeld.
Yes, I did notice that.
I did not know that, but I like.
He's that. George from Seinfeld.
He was also in an episode of Voyager as well. Think Tank. Thank you very much.
Keep going, Shawn. I'm sorry. Or to win a Carlos. Up to you guys.
Well, no, okay. So look, I get. Look, here's the thing. You got to understand something. I like the Orville, okay, and I'm not appreciating this continuing going to the well for old Star Trek on this. It's at the point where it's blatant, and it was kind of, look, here's the thing. Like I said, Amok Time. That's an impactful episode. That's a legendary, iconic episode of the Star Trek franchise for numerous reasons. Okay, and you're right; they tried to do the same thing in the season premiere here, but they failed miserably. They took it from Spock going, because he has once every 7 years he has to mate and he has to meet his wife and everything like that.
Come on, once every year. He said he only pees once a year in the pilot.
It doesn't matter. I mean, clearly they're following the same theme.
Right.
The fact that it's 1 year versus 7 years doesn't change the fact.
Yeah,
that's where it becomes parody. That's all I'm saying.
But this is the thing: the show is not supposed to be a parody. It's supposed to be a lighthearted. It's supposed to be a lighthearted space science fiction show. Is what it's supposed to be.
It's a new genre. I think that's the problem why everybody's so divided.
No, it's a confused genre. It can't decide what it wants to be.
It really can't. And look, here's the
it's
thing.
It's like Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy.
It kind of is, actually.
There you go. We know all the three of us here. We know someone that worked on that show. Okay, last year. All
right, Gabe. I know.
Fine, leave me out of it, Stu.
Well, you
no, the guy, one of the guys who works on the graphics.
I'm kidding. God.
One of the guys who works on the special effects VFX, Gabriel Kerner. Sorry, you and Carlos both know him. I understand that.
Right, and so, but the point being is, like, as you know, I had a discussion with him about this back when it happened. I said, look, you know what the show seems like to me after watching the pilot. I said, this looks like to me that Seth MacFarlane always wanted to have his own Star Trek show. He pitched it to Fox. Fox said, "Hey, aren't you the guy that does Family Guy?" He's like,
I think they knew who he was before anything else.
But let me finish here. Aren't you the guy that does Family Guy? Like, yeah. I go, all right. Here's the thing. We'll let you do your Star Trek show, but do your Family Guy stuff in there too. That's how it's going to be. And
well, he does have Kermit on his desk.
But the point being is that from what I understood, he really wanted to make just a straight Star Trek type show. Okay. And
I disagree. He wanted it to be MASH in space.
I'm telling you that it's actually been confirmed that that's what he wanted. But he was tied to keeping the Family Guy type humor into it. And I was a huge Family Guy fan back in the day. I think it's lost something over the years. It's not nearly as fun as it used to be. But I don't mind the humor of Family Guy. But
sadly, I don't think that the billionaire Seth MacFarlane really cares about any of our opinions.
Well, no, he may not, but it's this is at the end of the day, this is a network show, and what the audience thinks of the show determines whether it stays on the air.
No. I'm just saying, like Seth MacFarlane may be a lot of things, but personal opinions about him, don't know about that.
No, I'm not trying to. Keep going, Shawn. Sorry.
I like I said, I'm really more talking about the humor than anything else.
Gotcha.
To his credit, from what I understand, MacFarlane really wanted to make it.
Shawn is one of the most fair people that comes on here. Just so you guys know.
I'm just saying that perhaps what he wanted and what could have been done were entirely two different things. Maybe I
don't care what's showing up on screen. Honestly, like how the origin of it is not important to me at all.
Right.
If it's not on the screen, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, where are we? This is the thing. I'm the same point you are. I'm at. Okay, I gave you a year to work this out, and now we're right back to it. And it seems in the first two episodes that we're just it's like being doubled down on, and it's really starting to get annoying.
I don't agree, but Carlos, what do you think? Based on what you just heard
from
me,
I mean, it's going to depend on how it resonates with an audience. If it resonates with a million people, then it'll stick around, and if it doesn't, it won't. So that's going to be the ultimate arbiter here. I'm just speaking for myself in terms of my watching it. I just feel like it's still suffering from the fundamental flaw in its premise, which is it's trying to be two different things that don't really go well together.
Is it fair to say that some people have said that by that Seth MacFarlane, yes, his over-inspiring goal was to make a version of bringing back the Next Generation feel. Now he's already done that. Some fans are kind of debating, like, okay, and this is why Rotten Tomatoes scores are the way they are. People were surprised that the show was confident enough. This is where I'm going to argue with you, Shawn, a little bit. It wasn't I think one of the mistakes, if it is a mistake, was they took a season 1 episode and they planted it as the second episode of this season, and then the whole new direction they're going. Because, by the way, I already read that by episode 5 of this season, it introduces the replacement character for Alara Katan, who is arguably the most popular character on the show, because it wasn't because of the Seth MacFarlane dating thing. She actually is because she needed a break to do a movie, and she'll be coming back. So they need to do a sort of filler character, and the new character will come in the 5th episode, which will be like 3 more episodes from now. So the thing is that all the fans are divided on one thing. Well, not one thing, but they're saying, like, the scores are high, and people are saying, like, for a show that almost waited so long to come back, that they come back and they make a very light character-driven episode about people being jealous about their ex-wife dating a teacher and all this other stuff. And they introduced the stellar cartographer and all this other stuff. Or sorry, dark matter cartographer. So my question is this. What is it that made the first season work for you, Shawn? What episodes of Orville made you go, and Carlos, I'll ask you this question too. Because the first 2 episodes of Orville, to me, were and then everybody's saying if you wait till the 3rd episode of the first season, you start to see where he was genius, because he took that humor, but he was trying to plant real drama. And then like certain episodes such as Krill, or that episode where Bortus and his mate, I think that was the 3rd episode actually, where they had the gender thing, where the child was made into a male when it was born female, which is a rare thing in their culture. And they actually did a sequel to that in that 2nd episode as a follow-up. They didn't ignore it. I thought that was interesting. They made it funny, so it's like porn addiction on the holodeck, which they've done with TNG with Barclay in that one episode, but they didn't go that far with it. But all of a sudden, they actually make it a relevant connection to what happened with last season. You know what I mean?
But but the problem I have with it, with that part of it, they made that the A story. It was the problem I had with it, and the B story. Like, okay, all these people are going to die on this planet. It's not a big deal. I mean, it didn't. That part of the story didn't show up until 3/4 of the way into it. They didn't even know there were people down on that planet, and it got to a point where it was in that episode where it was like, yeah, we got it already. I mean, I think they went back in that thing 4 times we saw him go before he finally winds up getting caught, and then they have to have the talk. And by the way, who made the doctor a psychiatrist or a therapist as well?
That has been brought up. They didn't have a counselor on the show, so I guess she's a multi-PhD person.
Oh, and the other problem I have here too is that at the end he gives them this big speech about how your actions would almost kill the entire crew. But hey, you're a great guy. Look, here's the thing. That guy should have been off the ship immediately, okay, after that nonsense. And they just brushed it off. They just hit the reset button on the whole thing. And we'll see you guys next week.
Can I jump in on this on a personal level? I've been going to I'm going to throw this in just because it's relevant to what you just said. When I watched that scene, as funny as the Orville tries to be, they also try to sometimes be a little somewhat. That's the part that confuses people. What is it trying to be, like Carlos said? But the thing is that some of the stuff they throw in there is kind of real. I've been going to couple counseling with the VA with me and my girlfriend, and it's a little personal, but when I listened to how Claire was handling it, I know that the plot, they didn't want to add another character. They're just going, well, let's just say she has that as part of her repertoire also. But the way she structured her counseling sessions is actually very accurate to what I've been experiencing over the last 2 months.
Yeah, but what are we watching?
I'm like, wow.
Are we watching a Star Trek type show here? Or are we watching This Is Us? What are we watching here?
Counselor Troy did the same thing for some people.
But not to. I mean, to. Here's a show that's still trying to find its.
Well, she was individually counseling Barclay. Don't go into the holodeck.
And unfortunately, what it's doing, I think Shawn is getting to the central issue here, which is, it in their 2nd season they should be finding their feet. They should be coming up with their own ideas and not basically
breaking away
copying
from
Star Trek episodes.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
So they copied Amok Time last time. They copied the Reginald Barclay thing this time. You don't need to copy, because
there is one issue I would like. It perhaps doesn't do what it's looking for is a balance between the serious and the humor, much like Buffy the Vampire Slayer had, but it's not accomplishing that.
Exactly.
That's subjective, completely subjective. Because for me,
yes, but when it's subjective, it either works or it doesn't work.
That's it.
With enough people,
right. And I don't expect it to be completely dry, but they go from like, for example, I'm a big Supernatural fan. Supernatural has a ton of humor.
Exactly, it's excellent.
Right, exactly. But what we're seeing here is just slapstick, and it doesn't really fit very well. Is the problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think examples like that you're pointing out, like MASH and Buffy, yes, they were funny. They had humorous elements, but the stories were serious. The stories were original. The stories talked about real issues and framed in a not on the nose way, which is my big problem with that second episode.
I completely respect that view. That makes actually a lot of sense. I see. For me, I'm like one of those people that are on the bandwagon of, oh, it's bringing back that memory. I don't hate Discovery at all. I love Discovery. I look at it, Discovery the way I look at DS9. It's a different way of looking at Star Trek. I can't stand the fans that are so short-sighted that they go, this isn't Star Trek. Well, if you had been a Star Trek fan before DS9, you might have said the same thing. But this is a different approach. So that's how I look at Discovery. Well, when it comes to the Orville, people are going, oh, it reminds me of the Next Generation. Well, that's fine. But I think you're right, Carlos, that they do, unapologetically try to recreate a lot of the and twist their own version of a lot of the plot points from Star Trek in the past.
Like I don't have a problem with with the one-to-one relationship of some of the characters. Bordas is essentially Worf, etc. I'm fine with that. But why copy the stories? That's where it trips itself up.
It was a weird mix of pen pals, and they didn't even follow up with those people. But they did kind of throw it in there. It was weird.
Well, and the other thing about too is that, like, I'm looking over the list here of the season 1 episodes, and it's occurred to me that all my favorite episodes of that first season are the ones that were the most unique and most separate.
Yes.
From the Star Trek. For example, my favorite episode, I think, of the whole season was Majority Rule.
And the internet one, the social media one.
That's correct. I thought that was so clever.
It got a lot of criticism, but I think you're right. I love that episode.
No, it was so unique compared to so many of the other episodes of the season, and it was contemporary. It had a modern feel to it. It was something we could relate to.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second to tell Raul, because I think even though he hasn't seen the show, if I just tell him, so Raul, in the episode Majority Rules, they go to a planet that's like Earth. And in this world, they have an internet format where if you don't like what somebody says on social media, you press a vote button. And if you get too many downvotes, you kind of go to jail or you die. And so you have to keep it's like having Instagram. And if you don't keep everybody happy, it actually could affect your life.
It's even more than that. You remember,
right?
It wasn't just on social media. It's like if you're in front of somebody, you can downvote them. They wear a button, and you get to a certain point. They basically blank your mind.
One of the characters, the navigator, he humped a statue of their sacred whatever, and people captured it on their smartphones. And so basically, he was up for capital punishment, and they were trying to figure out how, without interfering with their culture from orbit, because it was Prime Directive type similar thing. They had to figure out how to save him from himself, because he was about to get voted to be executed because of stuff he did on social media, which is hump the statue. So it was it was funny in that sense, but it actually made a relevant point, and that's where sci-fi sort of shines, right, Shawn?
Yeah, I agree with that. And the only thing I'm going to say that the only thing that was clear that they ripped off from for that episode was the first season episode Next Generation Justice, where Wesley's he's playing catch the ball and he falls into the
with the naked people. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And frankly, one of its weakest episodes.
Yeah.
Correct.
We've talked about this episode before. It's basically, I call it the naked people episode.
That's it. And the but that's the only thing they really ripped off, and they made a joke out of it, because instead of Wesley, falling into a terrarium or whatever it is, you got their navigator humping a statue, which I like. Yeah, it was a little crude, but it did set up the rest of what I thought was a very clever episode. So they had that going for them in that.
I'm going to say this about the Orville. One of the things some people have asked is how come that we can have the same basic time frame as Star Trek: The Next Generation, but we don't have transporters? Well, because back when Gene Roddenberry made Star Trek, it was too expensive to do, so he made up the transporter, right? That's sort of like the same reason Doctor Who did their thing with the TARDIS. The shuttle is no longer expensive to do in sci-fi, so they're being realistic. Like, why would anybody want the transport?
Yeah, I mean that's it. The transporter was a plot device that was created for economic reasons.
Sure, but the thing to remember about this is it became its own thing. It took on a life of its own. That's why every other science fiction series uses transporters. I shouldn't say every, but so many do, and not because of budget reasons, but because it's just it works. It's a device that works.
All right, guys, we have about 15 or so minutes before we should probably wrap it up. Let's talk about Robert Meyer Burnett, and then we'll talk about the other subject afterwards. Robert Meyer Burnett, who is one of the people that was helping Alec Peters on Axanar, he's recently started doing a lot of streaming. And I feel as though we should let Carlos lead with that. Carlos, take it away, buddy.
Okay, so we had 2 broadcasts on YouTube, 2 live chats by one of Axanar's former directors, Robert Meyer Burnett, in which he's basically coming clean about all the stuff that happened with the production of Axanar, and this is all very much confirming so much of the coverage we've had on Axe Monitor about how the show, it was produced, where the money went, all that sort of stuff, and prompted by the fact that producer Alec Peters is threatening to sue. He says that he's almost ready to file the legal complaint against Robert Meyer Burnett for allegedly stealing equipment and because he helped him out. He bought him a car with this money. I can't say, because I've never seen the financials, that specifically that donor money.
Oh, I never heard that one. He bought him a car.
He says that in the first.
Burnett says it, and actually Peters.
Oh, I haven't. Was that one of his latest podcasts he just did, or? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the first of these 2. They were done right before the end of the year.
That part. Okay.
Yeah, they were done on last Saturday and on Monday.
Okay, keep going. Sorry about that.
So he's suing him for $30,000 over this new car that he got for him, and over which was around 15, and the other 15 was direct financial assistance that helped pay for his rent, etc. And so now he's wanting that money back, and so he's suing Rob Burnett, and Rob Burnett's like, no, I didn't take any that stuff you gave me because I was working full-time on Axanar, and you were supposed to be paying me. We had an agreement that you were going to pay me, and you didn't. And so you helped me out financially in places where I needed so I could stay afloat. So that's what prompted all this. But the interesting thing that comes out is we learn a lot about the evolution of the Axanar script, particularly between the time the version of the script that actually led to the lawsuit versus the what Rob considers the final version that corrects a lot of the deficits that we saw, but also preserves a lot of the fundamental flaws. The biggest one, of course, being that and Rob says this in his live chat that Garth is a Mary Sue character, and that there were just some things Alec Peters was not going to budge on in the way that Garth was going to be portrayed. His eyes would glaze over when they tried to get Bill Hunt, the co-writer, and Rob tried to get him to focus on Garth's character development. And character development means you have to start from a weak place, you end from a strong place, and he wants Garth to be strong. Always strong, only stronger, and that's not how you develop characters in drama.
You can't have a hero's. You can't have a hero without a hero's journey. Is what it comes
You can't have a hero's journey when the character is crazy from the start. That's almost like going backwards. Like, say, what is Vader's journey, or what was Palpatine's journey? Going backwards is kind of weird.
Well, I think it's established.
The circle thing.
This is the thing: is that Rob's idea for Garth was actually pretty clever in that it was Garth was a scientist who became crazy because of the horrors of war. As I
right.
understand.
I remember him saying that.
Because he was never a soldier first. He was a scientist first.
And his edge was that his scientific knowledge was an edge in the tactical decisions.
I think Rob's and Bill Hunt's, I think their idea for Garth was for what they would have hoped they could do with Garth, even though they couldn't because this was Alec Peters' baby. I think their idea for Garth is probably far more clever than anyone else had ever come up with, based from what I've heard personally. But Carlos, continue, please.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that learning more, and Rob actually released the that version of that final version of the Axonar feature as well in this past week, and so people have actually read the best version of that feature script that they would ever have likely to have seen, and so so there was a lot to talk about. But yeah, I mean, again, a lot of the behind the scenes problems that led to Christian Gossett, the first director for the Axonar feature leaving, some of the reasons why, the fact that so many of the people who really made Prelude what it was were pushed out by Alec because he wanted to take over, and that they, these other people, professionals who have a lot of industry experience, were running things. But once the money started flowing in, he wanted to take control of it, and so those people were all pushed out. And this is something that Christian has been saying for a long time. We've been reporting it. Some of it was coming out in some of the depositions that were released out of the lawsuit, but now we have some an actual eyewitness account about it as it happened, and really confirming a lot of what we have learned and expanding upon it. So that was a very interesting set of information to get as well.
And I don't. This situation is interesting because I reached out to Rob during his live stream. He was willing to come on the show sometime. He confirmed that, but of course, hopefully that has to happen.
I forgot you were there. I'm sorry.
I was, and he actually he said on his actual. If you watch the show, Shawn, because you posted that, there was a part where I said, "Will he come on the podcast?" I didn't say Super Geeks. I didn't plug our actual name,
I know
our brand, but I said, "Will you come on the show with me and Carlos?" Now I grant you, I apologize, Carlos, for name dropping you because it kind of made him light up a little bit, but it's true. You are here, right? So I'm willing to let him come on and talk and do whatever. I'm open to anybody talking. I don't really worry at this point where any other parties are concerned. I just want to talk about stuff. If people have a problem with it, then that's fine.
It's like I said to Rob the other day, because after I watched it, I think you were on the second. You kept showing up in the second episode, the Monday episode. I don't think you were on the Saturday.
It was the episode where he had the white rimmed glasses.
Yeah, the one where he mentioned
he wears those all the time.
Oh, does he? Well, I
don't think he was wearing them on Saturday, but I think he was wearing those on Monday.
It was the one. It was the one where he
doesn't matter, folks. Let's keep going.
Yeah, okay, keep going.
Right, exactly. So, but my point is that I realized from watching it's like, my God, I have so much in common with Robert Meyer and Burnett. I could just talk nerd shit with him all day. Oh my God. So yeah,
I don't agree with his feelings about Discovery, but other than that, yeah.
Sure. But I agree with some of his feelings about Discovery, not all of them, but look, George, you and I don't agree. We don't agree on everything. It's great.
It's fine, of course.
But we all have. It's like it's like Rob said. He's still watching it. He's still paying for it. So, but I mean, even if he's not.
Well, I'm just saying,
so
I don't agree with all the things he says, but I actually still admire him because even despite the Axonar conflict, I'm a fan of the Collider brand and their entire whatever they do. Like he's part of that. He still talks and goes on the John Campea podcast. He was part of before John Schnepp died. He was a very regular member of Collider Heroes. I think he stopped associating with them when John Schnepp died, and people kept bringing that up during that thing. And anybody that watches the Collider things, we have mutual friends like Dennis Zen, who's one of the producers of the Collider, is a good friend of Terry Lynn. We all have like 6 degrees of separation. You know what I mean? And
with us, it's actually,
sure, but what we're seeing here writ large, and Rob Burnett's, because he's the closest to what was really going on
exactly
with Axanar that has defected essentially.
And Matt Miller, who just recently, I guess he's delaying it, but he just interviewed Kristen Gossett, but he's going to delay the episode until the premiere of Discovery season 2.
Sure. Well, and I don't think we'll learn a whole lot more because Christian has gone at length about what happened. Right. I think he has stuff to say probably now that Rob is
right, and he piped up in that one of these streams.
But getting back to what we do know, which is what Rob did talk about, we're seeing a real implosion happening now with a lot of the creative people behind what was to be the Axanar feature, and we saw early indications of this right after the settlement in January 2017, when they won the right to do the 2 15-minute episodes, and Rob and Alec completely disagreed with one another about how to do those. Rob wanted to do the first 30 minutes of the full feature and just leave it at a cliffhanger, and in the hopes that maybe that would cause something else to happen in fandom, which I think was actually, when I first heard the idea, I thought it was kind of dumb, but the more I've thought about it now in the almost 2 years since that came out, is that he's right. They just gone and made it because so much of the pre-production work had been done, whereas they had to go back to scratch to do these 2 15-minute episodes.
Proof of concept is one thing, but actually getting something to show for the donors, right? Is that where you're going?
Well,
I agree with you.
What it comes down to is they had so much done already, is what it comes down to, with the assets that they had.
Well, do you guys remember in his... Sorry, do you remember when Rob described the way they had to improvise, and they had to go a little above? If they had more money, they could have hired a better crew to do the trolley or whatever, the way that the set was designed for the Vulcan scene, and if they had a little bit more money, they could have done it quicker. And otherwise, they built it from scratch, and it took them like months instead of.
Well, no, because it was mostly green screen, so that's not really an issue.
Right, but they were talking about the camera tracks, weren't they?
No, that's just simple dolly tracks.
Right.
The Vulcan scene was not that difficult to.
Right.
And Collins would know because you've done a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, the biggest issue he had, and he made it clear, was that they had to fight the sun. You're dealing, when you're outside, you're dealing with lighting. So they had to keep moving based their equipment, everything, and the green screen, everything. They had to keep moving all this based on the position of the sun in the sky. So, and that's nothing uncommon. That's when you're working outside. But the thing about it was, here's what it comes down to. They had that green screen built in the studio at the time, and for whatever reason, it was useless for doing that.
I mean, I agree with you. I just think it was interesting. Like, there are 2 different points of view. Well, more than 2. Everything from Robert's point of view was one thing, and we'll see what happens. So I'm hoping we can get him on the show and actually talk about this and see what he has to say. Of course, he's already said a lot.
Right. Well, he has. And let me point this out too. Here's what I think. What we're finding out from these defections, as they were, from these folks that are professionals, that are industry people that Alec was lucky to have work with him, is that they all tell, basically they're all singing the same tune about working with Alec Peters and the difficulties associated with that and the problems associated with that. But at the end of the day, what I figured out here is that they're all professionals and that they don't speak out of class until they're pushed to it. And this is the case with all of them. This happened with Tony Todd. This happened with Christian Gossett. This has now happened with Robert Meyer Burnett. Be on the lookout for Dean Newberry in the future. I would not be surprised. He's remaining low key for right now. But the point being,
we're seeing similar thing from Bill Hunt too. So you're talking about the writers, 2 directors, and then a whole slew of, associate producers, professionals who really pulled off Prelude, who were just pushed away.
Right, and they're at the point where they're not going to come out and publicly. But everybody thinks, well, why aren't you saying anything till now? Because they just don't do that. You don't come out. They're not going to come out and publicly, bash Peters for his ass hattery until they're pushed to do it. And this is what happened with Rob. Basically, all of a sudden, Peters wants a bunch of cash from him out of nowhere. And he what he does is he hires the same strong arm attorney that he hired to try to strong arm Tiana Armstrong of Hero Prop to try to squeeze $200,000 out of her.
All right, let's hold on, Shawn.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going down a different path.
Yeah, we're going. I want
to wind up with really the bigger implications here, which is that we're seeing now major cracks in the Axanar facade. With all of these defections, and now you're even seeing criticism coming from their own PR guy publicly.
That's right.
He said, "I'm not pleased with the way either side is handling this matter, and will counsel again, this time publicly, that both sides," by that he means Rob and Alec, "get over themselves and get to work on their respective projects. Alec, I'll tell you the same thing I told someone, presumably Burnett, earlier today. If the facts are on your side, and there's much more to it than what you've presented in the social media posts, we both know that, then let it play out in a court of law and stop talking about it publicly. Only telling half the story basically will only encourage people to correct the record, and more people will come out." And he said this was the key part. He says, "Don't go there. I'm begging you." But in all honesty, I think this advice, like so much I've given both of you, will go unheeded.
Look, what was Alec's response to that? First, he said this wouldn't have happened.
He removed the comment.
The post. Right, exactly. They removed Mike Bodden's post. Exactly.
All right. So for the record, I'm not saying I agree with. I'm not. No, you know what? Here's the thing. People should just say whatever, and they should explain themselves. And I screw up too. And if someone wants to call me out on it,
yeah, but no one's suing you. No one's threatening to ruin your reputation.
Okay. However, let's point one thing out. Out of fairness, it's all talk right now, right? Because there's been no actual papers delivered to Rob about, he's actually being sued. It's a threat.
I doubt there will
it's just a threat. And he knows it. That's why he's not sweating.
Well, he had an attorney send a demand letter for $45,000.
But that's not the same thing, right? There's no court date.
It's still a threat. It is still a threat.
All right.
That's fair. From an attorney. That's not just people, shooting shots across the bow on Facebook. This is
how many times has any of us? Let me ask you guys. You guys both know this way better than me. I'm a casual glancer, and even though Carlos and Shawn are part of the show, I'm not in the know as much as they are, obviously. So let me ask you guys this: how many times, if any, has any of his threats turned into fruition? Any?
Yeah, we've just seen it with Tiana Armstrong.
All right.
We're seeing it. We're pretty close.
Jason
with Rob Burnett. We saw it with Jason DeBoard. He's a very litigious guy. Now, so that's not to say that every time he threatens, he's going to follow through.
No, I don't mean threats. I'm talking about the actual litigation, not threats.
Yeah, it's happened, and he's lost every case.
Oh, really? How many? Okay.
Yeah, he's never succeeded.
Forgive me for not realizing this, but I know, because I keep hearing things like he threatens to sue. I'm not as aware of actual follow through as when it comes to litigation happening, actually going to court, being filed.
Yeah, well, it has happened. We've seen it many times, and it's about to happen with Rob.
Sued.
So
it becomes to me, what I see with this and the Hero Prop, what he did was he's using collection agency law firms, and they're basically, like I said, they're stronger.
Well, again, I that's a path we don't need to go down today, the particulars of it. The big news here is that so much of what we've said went wrong with Axanar, we're finding out actually went wrong with Axanar, and people are now coming forward and saying so publicly.
Real quick, because I think we might as well migrate off of this, transition off of this. What's the update of the tardigrade? And then we'll call this the last subject. Tardigrade lawsuit, Carlos, has been updated. There's something going on. What do you know of the update as far as the tardigrade lawsuit with CBS and Discovery?
Well, I think I reported earlier that the case got a new judge assigned to them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so that's not new. But what was new was the delivery of that judge wanted a status letter, one letter coming from both sides explaining the case, where it was, what the general arguments are, what happens next before they move to the next scheduled event, which is a pre-motion conference in advance of CBS and Netflix filing a motion to dismiss, claiming that on just the points of law, the case shouldn't move forward. So those points of law are laid out in this letter and responded to by the plaintiffs, and that's where it stands for now. Where this week they have the conference scheduled on January 8th, so it's coming up in a couple of days. I don't think that's a public hearing. It's in their office. It's informal. The idea is to not have to take up court time if there's not really a case there, and unless they're intractable, in which case the judge may give some indication about how she might rule on a motion to dismiss and so forth. So anyway, that's what's happening this week, and if there's any motion there, it would be a big deal if essentially we hear that she is inclined to dismiss it. But motions to dismissal at this stage generally don't work. But in this case, there's just so much just conjecture around the supposed copyright infringement that we don't, we might see it. But January 8th is the day, so we'll certainly keep reporting on it.
And I don't see a settlement personally. I think that their case is pretty solid. I don't think it's going to go for CBS to settle with this plaintiff. Well, I mean, Shawn, even you've been a paralegal.
This is I'm 100% agreement with Carlos that it's just straight up so many there's so much conjecture is what it comes down to. The fact that something may have been available or seen. I mean, they're using the number. What are they using? The number of views of Reddit as justification for how many people. That obviously then the people who make Discovery, yes, I mean, became aware of his game. It's so absurd as a legal premise. I'm shocked the lawyers brought this to the table. Is what it comes down to, because it just seems so silly. And Carlos is right. Normally, you don't get past. I mean, you get past at least this point. They don't dismiss this early. But I think this might be one of those rare cases, that they do. It's just because what we're seeing here, the whole issue around access. I mean, that's a question of fact, and that's something that the judge isn't going to rule on. The judge is going to rule on questions of law. Is the law being interpreted correctly by both sides? And so What we did learn in this status letter is that we're going to get a third amended legal complaint from the tardigrades folks, presumably trying to strengthen their case based on all of the many weaknesses that the defense has pointed out. So we'll see, and there might be a delay on that January 8th meeting because everyone's willing to wait for this third amended complaint before a motion is filed for dismissal.
Okay,
I find that humorous that the plaintiffs they're getting they're getting their test notes from the defense.
They kind of are, yeah. I find it interesting when you call it a tardigrade anything. I think it's funny.
How to file a better complaint from the defense.
All right. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so funny. So yeah, we've gone a little over than. It's okay though. It's we're good. I want to wrap this show up. I think this has been interesting, guys. Oh my God, season 3. We just brought back the show. Shawn, thank you for joining us today. Where can people find you on social media? And by the way, What if you have to grade Orville? No, not Orville. Doctor Who season finale. No, because I know what you're going to say. Doctor Who's New Year's. If you're going to give it a grade from 1 to 10, what would you give it?
Oh, 9.5.
Oh, shit.
I don't give anything a solid 10. I give
Oh, that's kind of all right.
I loved it. I loved it so much.
Oh my God, Carlos, what about you?
I would give it about an 8.5.
That's what I would give it. Yep.
Because it was, it was well constructed, it was well done. I still think they're working to, really get what who the Doctor is in this latest incarnation, and I'm not sure that they have that 100% nailed. The writers,
but the rest
I think gets it, but the writers aren't giving her enough
to
do with that. So
what? I'm going to
top notch for her.
Off. Yeah, I agree.
Not even a point for like more TARDIS time.
No, well, I'm going to give it. I'm going to take a half point off myself because Carlos right about that, because that is one thing I did notice is that they didn't really give her much time in this episode.
Wait, what are you
give a Doctor?
She ran away. Oh,
it's not just about time. It's the fact. I mean, her just going around doing things is not character development, and
that's it. Right. That's really what I mean. It was more about the meat. They didn't really.
I'm going to agree with Carlos on the 8.5. I think the Dalek was the effects made the Daleks more scary. I think that we'll see where this goes. My only real grudge about the whole new approach to Doctor Who is she's never actually been on screen said to them, "I'm a Time Lord." They don't even, as far as we know, they don't even know what she is. She never talks about, "I'm a Time Lord. What are you?" "I'm a Time Lord." Every other Doctor has said to a companion, "I'm a Time Lord." I've never heard her even mention that.
She also does not call them companions. She calls them friends or fam.
Right.
So, and I'm okay with that. Because
I can assume it's
Time
an
Lord
off-screen
is a meaningless thing to these people. It doesn't change anything for them. So I don't have a problem with
it's a nitpick. It's just because over the last 50 years, at some point, the Doctor always makes the companion aware.
And over the last 50 years, the Doctor has always been a man.
Okay, you totally win that argument. So we will. That wins the internet right there. I mean, we'll move on.
Well, let me just now that Carlos brought it up, I want to point this out too, is that the perspective of the Doctor, she seems to keep the family on a more peer-like level. Let's put it this way.
Absolutely, yeah, that's true.
So which I kind of like, and I like how, what I also like too is how by the second or third episode, all these companions, they're really not in awe of it anymore. They're kind of like, yep, this is our reality now. I kind of dig that.
No, they're still discovering. Anyways, there's so much we could say about that. We got to save it for another show, especially because we have over a year before the next one. So anyways, Raul, by the way, Raul, I want to give you kudos. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, the reason I want to give you kudos is because we talked about a lot of stuff that you necessarily didn't watch, but you know what? Your input was good.
I agree.
I mean, you had something to say when it was relevant, and when it comes to Star Trek, Doctor Who, even though you didn't actually watch, or even Orville, I want to give you credit. That makes you the companion of the year, because it's only 20
Outstanding.
Oh, yay, Raul.
Yeah, but I guess it depends on which Doctor, right? That's the one.
Well, my Doctor, which is whoever's going on right now. Which, by the way, is
current.
I have to say
about Raul's. What I liked about Raul's contributions today is Raul brought the heat with no bullshit. He stood firm with his opinions. I like having throwdowns with people about their opinions on this meaningless bullshit that we talk about.
It's like saying we got a new Godzilla. What Raul did was like saying we got a new Godzilla show. Where the fuck's Rodan, motherfucker? You know what I'm saying?
Hells yes.
All right.
No, it was fun. It was fun. I had fun, Raul.
Yeah, you found a way, Raul, to pipe in without actually watching what we were talking about. But you know what? You knew the general subject matter. That was cool. That was, you're a good guy. Yeah, no, you're a good person. I'll pay you the $5 Monopoly that.
Yay! I too can live on the purple properties.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining the season premiere of Super Geeks. It ran a little longer than I intended, but you know what? It's still within the parameters. It's okay. This was the season premiere, by the way. So for anybody who wants to join us, first of all, I want to start emphasizing you guys need to click a like and subscribe for no reason other than to give us a reason to say you clicked and subscribed. And also Raul, he needs a little bit of love. Carlos, where people can find you on social media?
I'm at Axmonitor on Twitter, and I publish on axmonitor.com. And then we have the Axmonitor Facebook discussion group called Axmonitor. So you'll find me in all those places.
And Shawn, I know people usually find you there, but is there somewhere else you've recently opened up?
No, I haven't. But here's the thing: I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about pulling up my getting my old blog going again and kind of.
Oh yeah, you talked about that one time. Yep.
Yeah, I'm thinking about just bringing it up and giving it a kind of a new direction.
We can always give people your phone number so they can just harass you.
Well, we could just ask Alec Peters to put my address out there again. He's cool about doing that apparently, so it's all good.
A little old school doxing. That's always fun.
Oh man, yeah. Let's not even go there because Rob Burnett.
He did it to me, but here's the thing: Rob and I.
You guys made up. I get it. I know.
And not only did we make up about him doing that, we made amends a long time ago. I want to.
He made up for it completely. I agree.
Right, he did. I want to once again give him credit for addressing it in his second live chat the other day that you were involved in. He came out and he was so gracious and he apologized to me. And I heard about it third hand that he apologized. And he wasn't.
Well, I was the one that told you. I think first. I said in the Super Geeks chat, I said, Shawn, Rob just apologized for doxing.
I got it from like 3 or 4 different people at once. It was really a magnanimous thing to do. He didn't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
We really appreciate it. He didn't just apologize. He said wonderful things about me and my family.
Oh, he did. He was very like you said, magnanimous. Yeah, good. Right, I like that word.
I don't even say that many nice things about you, Shawn.
I mean, I don't either. Not at all. Nope.
You Rob son of a bitch.
He was a lot kinder to you. Carlos, don't quit your
That's a comment. That's a comment that's common about George. I was supposed to say Carlos.
No, I've got my Hispanic straight tonight, I think.
Do you?
New episode title, That Son of a Bitch. New episode title, that's it.
Shawn is a fellow white guy. No, I'm just kidding.
As a fellow white guy.
No, I'm joking because there's been a little joke running around that I mix up Carlos and Raul, but it's got nothing to do with their. Anyways, I should shut up. Anyways, son, if she was here, she would be like, "Oh my god," she'd be like rolling all over this. Anyways, I want to thank everyone for joining us for the new season premiere of Super Geeks. If you guys want to join us next time and you haven't been turned off by Shawn, no, I'm just kidding.
That's true.
He's married for that kind of action. What are you talking about?
All right, all right, you guys. Thank you for joining us for 2019 or 2019 or whatever way you want to call it. And Shawn will join us at some point.
I'm going to try to, if we can do more of them like this in the new year this late, I'm more than happy.
We're already in the new year. It's not a question of if, it's when.
Awesome. Well, you let me know.
All right, Shawn, remember we have plans like Game of Thrones when it comes out, right?
Right. Yep.
And Star Trek Discovery. Yep.
Right.
And Dayton's even.
Which is just 2 weeks away.
Yep. Shit. Yes. All right, you guys. Thank you for joining this new episode. I hope the new year will be fruitful. Fruitful. There you go. I couldn't think of the word.
Fruitus.
And Shawn will join us. I normally say join us next time. I'm gonna exit with this. Shawn will join us sometime.
That's better. I will definitely try to join you next time.
Same bad channel, same bad time.
Pretty much. Guys. All right, you guys.